Hello BookTube. Today I'm talking about the New Teen Titans Volume 3. I've talked about the New Teen Titans a lot on this channel recently, but just to briefly recap my history with them, I discovered the New Teen Titans in the back issue bins in my local comic book bookstore in the mid-90s. Now, these issues all came out in 1982, the issues that are recaptured in this volume. I read them about 15 years later in the mid-90s, some of them, because as always when you're collecting comic book issues 15 years later, it's hard to find the complete run of things, and they get more expensive. So the memory is a little bit imprecise, but I think I had maybe 3 or 4 of these issues back when I was a teenager in the mid-90s. The other issues I was reading for the first time. So I'm just going to jump in and start talking about these individual issues. As usual, the camera I'm using has a 30-minute time limit, after which the video file is just going to cut out. And so, however, wherever I end up at the end of 30 minutes is just where this video is going to end. There's an introduction here by Len Wein, who I guess was one of the editors at DC Comics and a frequent collaborator of Marv Wolfman. So he talks about his and Marv Wolfman's history creating the Teen Titans here. And there are some interesting tidbits that I might refer to later as we go through these issues. And then we start with issue number 17, which is the possessing of Frances Kane. So I believe this is the first issue in which Frances Kane is introduced. She is, in this issue, possessed by what appears to be a demon, but we later find out at the end of the issue, spoilers, that it's the supervillain Dr. Polaris, who is banished to another dimension by Green Lantern and is trying to re-enter the dimension by possessing Frances Kane. And we also find out at the end of the issue that Frances Kane's brain has more powerful than normal middle waves or metallic waves. Frances Kane is going to go on to become a supporting character in these comics. She's going to be a on-again, off-again love interest of Wally West, aka Kid Flash. And she's also going to struggle with the superpowers she has, which she doesn't want, which allows her to control metal, kind of like Magneto in the Marvel comics. And in fact, not in this issue, but in later issues, they're going to give her the name Magneta, which, seems like it's kind of a ripoff of Magneto, doesn't it? Although, again, when I was first reading these issues in the mid-90s, I didn't know much about Marvel Comics at all, and it was before the first X-Men movies had come out, so I didn't even know there was a Magneto over at X-Men. But anyways, those are all for future issues. And in this issue, well, this is the last that she will appear in this volume. We then go to Starfire, the original. So, I guess maybe because Starfire is kind of an obvious or unoriginal name, there was a Starfire already before the New Teen Titans. So this is Starfire of the New Teen Titans, who was created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. But there was also a Starfire who was created by Marv Wolfman and Len Wein. Len Wein, again, is the gentleman who did the introduction for this book, for the Teen Titans back in 1968. So now they've got 2 characters with the same name. And that's somewhat one of the gimmicks of this issue, is it's the original Starfire. So Starfire is a superhero, but he is ideologically ideologically with the Soviet Union, and he's a citizen of the Soviet Union. So he's a Russian, and he supports the Soviet Union government. And of course, this was during the Cold War. So these stories that have tension between Russia and the United States were quite common during this period. Now, Starfire is one of the good guys, but the government he works for, the Soviet Union, of course, you can't trust them, or at least that was the mentality of the comics at the time. It would be an interesting study to do a survey of all the Cold War comics and see how they evolved over time. But somebody other than me will have to do that study. All I can do for the moment is comment on this particular issue. So Starfire previously had allied with the Titans back in 1968. Of course, it's different in comic book time, but that's when the issue came out. In these issues, there's a rogue agent from the Soviet government who has infected a woman with a disease. She doesn't know she's carrying that disease. Starfire, the original Starfire, has to stop her. And the Teen Titans are suspicious of what he is doing because they've been tipped off by one of their U.S. government operatives, King Faraday, who's a reoccurring character in DC Comics, that Starfire is going to be in the U.S. As is maybe typical of these types of stories, there's a lot of mistrust for no reason. I mean, if Starfire would just sit down and talk to the Teen Titans at length, it would save them having to fight for a long time. It's even though they're really both trying to do the same thing, because of miscommunication, they end up fighting a lot. It's also established here, I don't remember seeing this established before, but established here that Wally West is kind of the conservative asshole of the group. Look, I don't put you down for being liberals. Why attack me for being a Midwestern conservative? He's portrayed, I guess, as conservatives are portrayed in comics, or at least in the Teen Titans, as being impulsive, quick to anger, not thinking things through, and so he ends up antagonizing the original Starfire and provoking a lot of the needless conflict before the story is finally resolved at the end. By the way, I neglected to mention this before, but this is Volume 3. So the series is established now. And for my money, this is when it starts getting really good. So we have these fights between the characters, but the focus isn't so much on the fighting, or I guess the focus is equally on the fighting, but it's also on their dialogue and the interpersonal dynamics. And Marv Wolfman and George Perez are at a point now where they can really pull this off, where you get caught up in the debates and the dialogue that these characters are having. And that continues to be strong all the way through this volume. Then we have another issue here. I guess we're up to issue 19. More soap opera stuff here. So Cyborg and the girl he's in love with observing each other from afar, but Cyborg doesn't want to talk to her because in the previous volume she was held hostage by the Terminator because of him. Okay, and then we get into this issue, which has Dr. Light in it, who's a frequent antagonist of the Titans, the Teen Titans. Now, previously, when we saw Dr. Light, he was with the Fantastic Five. But here, he's just by himself. And it's established that when he's by himself, he's a bit of a bumbler. His powers are all right, but no match for the combined force of the Teen Titans. Plus, he seems to, be a bit of a coward, as established in these issues. These issues also have a guest appearance by Hawkman, who initially fights Dr. Light. Dr. Light unintentionally awakens these Hindu deities. And then he actually runs to get help from the Titans. And then the Titans end up fighting the Hindu monsters. Well, Dr. Light tries to sneak off and steal some more stuff from the museum. But being the bumbler that he is quickly caught. Issue 20 is all from the perspective of Kid Flash, Wally West, who is writing a letter to his parents while he's narrating what will happen. Now, if you know anything about the new Teen Titans, you know that Wally West is not going to stick with this group for much longer. I believe by volume 6 is going to be his final appearances. And so it's easy to forget, I guess, that he was ever once a member of the new Teen Titans. But for the moment, at least, he is one of the prominent members, and each of these characters had some sort of angst. Wally West's angst is that he's not sure he wants to be a superhero, and he's struggling to establish a normal relationship with his parents, which is, I guess, why he's writing them this letter. The character dynamic is really good. Again, the changeling and the cyborg. It's established here in Wally West's narration that the changeling is the youngest member of the Teen Titans, and somewhat a little bit annoying to the rest of them. But also makes a lot of wisecracks. And I think as Wally West says in his narration, the wisecracks are designed to project overconfidence and maybe mask his feelings of inadequacy. But the whole character is coming off well. And I think, again, this is a point in which Marv Wolfman has really mastered what he wants to do with these characters. Okay. There is... one of the reasons that Marv Wolfman will later want to get rid of Kid Flash from this group is because he doesn't really know what to do with Kid Flash's powers. I believe he said that once in an interview. So it's established that Kid Flash can run like miles in seconds. And so you would think that he would be able to defeat all the bad guys before they would even know he was there. But he keeps getting defeated by them. And that's... I think that's a continuity point. The level of his powers doesn't seem to match what he's actually able to accomplish. But he also seems to have some weird powers here. Like, he's tied up. So he's not able to escape, but he is able to send vibrations to Titan's tower by vibrating his hands really quick, and then the vibrations go to Titan Tower. But, I'm reading this, I'm thinking, okay, he's tied up. I mean, how does he even know where to point his hands so that these vibrations will go exactly to Titan's Tower without hitting anything in between? I mean, some of these powers just seem a little bit silly. But regardless, then there is, I guess for whatever reason, the story was not long enough to fill out the issue or whatever. Because then we have another mini story attached to the same issue, which is one of those things that comic book writers will do every now and again, where they write themselves into the story. I think both Marvel and DC liked to do this occasionally. So here's Marv Wolfman and George Perez, who get sucked into the Titans universe, initially get held hostage by a bad guy, and then the Titans come in and rescue them. And it's all it's all very tongue-in-cheek, of course. And then Len Wein is also in here, and he's portrayed as talking to his teddy bears. As he said in his introduction, this is something that he got mocked about for years afterwards, even though he claims this portrayal of him is just totally fictitious. And it probably is. And it's probably just his friends having fun with him. And then the last 4 issues in this volume are Tales of the Teen Titans. So we see here this volume contains the New Teen Titans number 17, 18, 19, 20. And then Tales of the New Teen Titans is a mini-series that contains issues 1 to 4, going from June 1982 to September 1982. Now, if memory serves, Tales of the New Teen Titans would later go on to be the title of a reprint series for the New Teen Titans. So I think this happened sometime after issue 50. The Teen Titans had 2 simultaneous titles being published in the 80s. One on expensive paper, which would have the new stories in it, and that was just called The New Teen Titans, or it was later changed to The New Titans. And then there was the Tales of the New Teen Titans, which was reprinting the stories from the New Teen Titans on cheaper paper. And it was these issues, the Tales of the New Teen Titans, that primarily made up my collection when I started getting these, collecting these in the mid-90s, because they were in the 3 for $1 bin at my comic book store, presumably because they were the cheap reprint versions. But all of that is to say that this is not that. So this Tales of the New Teen Titans apparently was a mini-series before it was the name of an ongoing reprint line. And there are 4 issues here which give the backstories to the New Teen Titans. And there is Cyborg, Starfire, Raven, and Changeling. Which is not the whole group. There are 3 more members. There's also Robin, Wonder Girl, and Kid Flash. But presumably the reason that Wonder Girl, Robin, and Kid Flash don't get their own issues is because they are so well established in the DC universe, and their origin stories are very well known and well told. Whereas Cyborg, Raven, and Starfire are completely new characters for the New Teen Titans. And Changeling was a pre-established character, but he had been a minor character before. So I guess they gave him his own issue. Len Wein, in his introduction, which I noted earlier, says that this was just editorial pressure from DC Comics. The new Teen Titans were selling well, so they wanted more Teen Titans issues. So while the new Teen Titans were still being produced, they also produced this miniseries alongside of it. And he said everyone just worked more hours and got more sleep because that's what DC editorial wanted, because this is what was selling at the time. And this is still by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. So they are now doing double the work on this series to get these issues out simultaneously. So the premise of these issues is that the new Teen Titans go camping, and while they're camping, one by one, they each retell their origin stories to the others. The first one is Cyborg, and there is not too much in here that really affects his character long term. I mean, we learn about his relationship with his dad, his mother, his girlfriend, his ex-friend, Ron, I believe his name was. What is his name? Oh yeah, Ron. Ron is his name. And it's interesting insofar as it goes, but these characters don't really go on to play a large role in Cyborg's development going forward, I believe. There is the character Ron, who falls off, but they can never find his body. So I'm wondering if Ron comes back. I certainly don't remember any issues in which Ron comes back, but they're setting it up on a platter now to have Ron come back. So does Ron ever come back in one of those issues? I mean, if he does, it must have been one of the issues I missed. But as I continue to work my way through these new Teen Titans collections, I guess we'll see. But definitely with Raven. We get a lot of Raven's mythology expanded on here. And, you know, it was interesting for me to read these because, like I said, I read several of the New Teen Titans volumes in the mid-90s. But I didn't have these origin stories. And so the whole thing about who was Izar and who was Azareth and where does Raven's mother come from and the whole mythology behind Raven, I was mostly confused by when I was reading the New Teen Titans because, yeah, I guess because I hadn't read these origin issues here. So this kind of very clearly lays out her whole origin. Yeah, it was interesting to read this after so long of being confused about who this character is. Now, the one about the Changeling. Again, Changeling was an established character before. He was a minor character, but he had been an established character in both the Doom Patrol comics and the original Teen Titans. He was part of Teen Titans West in the original run. Yeah, as you can see in this picture, these are the other Teen Titans West. So they recreate a conflict between him and one of his former guardians. Or sorry, they create a conflict between him and one of his former guardians. But it doesn't really add much to the Changeling mythology. And if memory serves, none of this really affects any of the Changeling stories going forward. But it's all right for what it is. But yes, then after this we get Starfire's origin. And this one is useful because this gives us a lot of information about Starfire and her conflict with her sister, which is will go on in future Titans issues to have a big impact on the storyline. So it talks about her hometown, the origin of her conflict with her sister, her home planet, how she got sold into slavery, some of which has been established in previous issues. But yeah, useful stuff here for establishing her mythology, which will go on to, or establishing her lore, which will go on to play an important part in future Titans issues. Although some of this here, I mentioned in the previous review that Starfire, you get the impression that the artist is just kind of catering towards the male gaze. And you look at these issues and you can't help but think, is there some sort of bondage fetish being catered to in a lot of this? I guess, well, yeah. I guess they do make these comic books mostly for teenage boys, don't they? So there you go. And then, yeah, that's it. So, boy, this doesn't usually happen. I talked about every issue in under 30 minutes. I actually got to review the whole volume this time. So this was Teen Titans Volume 3. And I will go on next to Teen Titans Volume 4, the new Teen Titans Volume 4, and then I'll review that as well.